This is the Seahawkers Podcast, episode 330. I'm Brandon Schultz of the Military Seahawkers, and joining me, he's pretty much just all over the Pacific Northwest. If you have a lumber mill in your area, he is doing the maintenance on the saws, but he's at home for now. He's my good buddy, Adam Emmert.
Yeah, I think it's 12 hours here that I'm going to be home before I take off again this afternoon. So, yeah, if you are in the lumber mill market and have giant band mills and you need a dirty grinder to come and service you, I will come and service you.
Doesn't sound dirty at all.
No. But in the meantime, when I get a couple free minutes, I get to sit down and we get to talk about some Seahawks football. And there's been at least a little bit of news between now and then.
There's at least been a little bit. And, you know, when we don't record for a week, we put it off a few days. Then sometimes news actually happens that we can throw in here, too. And and the thing that I'm most excited about, Adam, it's time to close the book on the Russell Wilson talk. Because we're not going to talk about Warren Moon going on the NFL Network's Huddle and Flow podcast, because Warren is apparently 2 months behind on the Russell Wilson news cycle. Warren's still out there talking about, this is a marriage of Russell Wilson and the Seahawks, and it's going to turn into a separation and then a divorce. And by the way, I still don't remember when I entered into a 4-year, $140 million contract with my wife. So this whole comparison.
You didn't?
I didn't.
I did.
Did you?
I did.
With my wife?
I got paid. No. No, I did not. I think when I got divorced, she thought we had a contract like that because she tried to ask for about that much.
So maybe in your case, maybe this comparison between employee and employer and comparing it to a marriage is all right then. But it's odd to me.
Well, here's the thing. I will say, out of all the people on this planet that I'm going to take relationship advice from, one of the people on the bottom of that list is Warren Moon.
Warren Moon is definitely on the bottom.
And if you don't understand those reasons, just go look up some news articles. You'll figure it out.
But we aren't talking about Warren Moon because, like I said, he's behind this. He's behind the times because Brandon Marshall was on First Things First on FS1 telling us that Seahawks fans, we don't have anything to worry about anymore.
This conversation is over. Russell Wilson is going to be a Seattle Seahawk for a very long time. Now, we can't predict the future. We don't know if, you got so many things that can come into play down the road. We know that. But right now, Pete Carroll sat down and said, you know what? The philosophy difference, the change, the difference in philosophy that we had, let's get on the same page. I need to give my Hall of Fame quarterback everything he needs to be successful and lead this team. They're on the same page. I would say their relationship is probably better now than it's ever been. So sometimes you got to go through this. You talk about marriage. You talk even the great Warren Moon opining. Love it. He's giving his opinion on it. Talking about marriage and it's rocky right now and it's going to end rough next year. No, it's not. They're on the same page right now. And Russell Wilson, Nick, he wants to be a Seattle Seahawk for a very long time. He really loves Kobe Bryant's story. He really loves Derek Jeter's story where we're talking about somebody stayed in one organization for 20 years. The problem is those guys won. He has won, but that was a very long time again. Russell Wilson is not thinking about Super Bowl II. He's thinking about Super Bowl III, Super Bowl IV. He's literally thinking that. I played with the guy. So right now, I am reporting this because Russell's not talking. Pete Carroll's not talking. And every day we're going to come up and, what's going on with Russell Wilson? Who's calling now? It is over, Nick. He will be there for a very long time. It's dead. It's done.
Brandon Marshall, the guy who helped kick off this whole saga to begin with a couple months ago, he says it's over. Not only is it over, Adam, the relationship between Russ and Pete has never been better.
Yeah, that was a really long-winded way to say, remember everything I said a couple of weeks ago? None of that.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing about listening to Brandon Marshall here is I just want to grab him by the suit and just be like, catfishing, duh. Like, this is, we didn't need to wait for all this. We've been talking about this since the beginning of all this stupid drama. And lo and behold, it's all turning out exactly as we said. And that's the thing that is just so maddening. It's like, oh, a couple months ago or a month ago, oh, this is beyond repair. They can't ever coexist ever again. And now Brandon Marshall says that Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson are holding hands and skipping down the beach together.
Well, they had a meeting. They had a meeting and they talked about things.
What?
And it made everything better.
Whoa. So you're telling me the two full-grown adults got together and had a conversation about their professional differences and were able to reconcile them? I thought that was impossible. That you couldn't do that.
People thought it was impossible. Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson, they have made the impossible possible.
Well, on my drive back from North Dakota yesterday, I got to listen to First Take and those folks on there. Let's see, that's Stephen A. and Kellerman. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Isn't that First Take now? Yeah, that's First Take.
I don't know.
Now.
I don't remember. It's hard to keep track. They keep moving around.
Yeah, but anyhow, the teaser in what they that they were going to talk about later, Russell Wilson, he talked to Carlos Dunlap and said he's going to be a Seahawk and he's going to be a Seahawk for a while. Should we believe him? I don't know. It's only what he said. So,
What does Carlos Dunlap have to gain by going on and making things up about what Russ said when, okay, so Carlos says to Russ, hey, I'm kind of wanting to stay here, but I kind of really don't want to stay here if you're not going to be the quarterback. So what's up? And Russ tells him, oh yeah, I'm here. Yeah. And so we don't want to believe the Carlos Dunlap story.
Right. And then the proof is in the pudding here too, as well. The Seahawks, they go out and they get Waldron to come in and change the offensive philosophy. They go out and they get Gabe Jackson. And let's see what they do in the draft regarding the offensive line. I mean, they're going out and they re-sign Tyler Lockett, right?
Right.
I mean, they're doing the things. They bring in Gerald Everett, another weapon. They're doing the things to say, hey, yeah, man, I hear you. We have limited resources this year, but what we do have, we'll do our best to get you rolling the way that you'd like. And yeah, of course, if you're Russell Wilson at that point, you go, yeah, that's a cool deal. I'm ready to stay. And not only that, but we talked about it a little bit on a few shows past. The idea of Russell being like kind of Mr. Seahawk, right? Mr. Seattle. And it's like, do you really think he's going to burn all those connections and all of the goodwill that he's built up in that community? The idea that he likes Kobe Bryant's story and Derek Jeter's story. Yeah. We've been saying crap like that for the longest time. Like, if he cares about his image so much, right, which everybody says he does, he wouldn't force his way out in a really messy divorce. So it's just, of course, it's all fine now. Of course it is.
It is. It's fine for now, but that people still hanging on. You mentioned, should we believe Carlos Dunlap? Even after Brandon Marshall goes on saying that, Russell Wilson's going to be with the Seahawks for a long time and this whole saga is over. There's the question at the end, and it's like, please tell us there's still a possibility for a trade, because what can happen so we can start talking about this again and have some more, because we haven't had enough.
What do you see in the future that could re-spark a flame that sort of divides Russ and the Seahawks? Nothing?
Mike Florio.
Pete Carroll walking into Russell Wilson's kitchen and saying the things that we talked about back in April and late March, about letting you cook and giving you what you need. And this philosophy of, we don't have to run the ball on first, second, and third down. We're going to give you what you need. If he reneges on that, then that's what's going to spark it. But I can't see that. I don't see that happening. I just don't see that happening. Two men sat down and had a great conversation. Now they're on the same page, Jenna.
You know what I heard right there from Marshall, Adam? It's let Russ cook season again.
Yeah,
Russ got assurances from Pete that they're not going to run the ball on first, second, and third down. It's Russell Wilson's getting back in the kitchen in 2021.
Well, right. I mean, it's a well-known fact that all the Seahawks do is run on every down every time. So there's that. And then, hey, this season, the Let Russ Cook season, we have a whole new set of recipes with Waldy in there. So it's going to be really fun. It's going to be really fun.
Waldy's the sous chef. Russell is the chef. Right. And then you got, I don't know how it works in a kitchen, actually. I've never been a part of a kitchen.
No, me neither.
I watch a lot of cooking shows.
Yeah, that's a metaphor that we're gonna let go.
I'll let go of that one.
Yeah. But yeah, okay. So that's done now, right? Like that vampire, we've stabbed it in the chest with a stake, right?
I think
like
so.
It's done?
I feel like it is.
Okay. Mike Florio knows this now, right?
I don't know. I have not listened to Florio since the Brandon Marshall comments. I think that he may just choose to ignore that particular report because that ruins part of his offseason. Like, we still have months and months of football stuff to talk about. If we can't talk about Russell Wilson being traded, I mean, what are we going to talk about?
So since he was dead ass wrong about this for the 30th time now in his illustrious career over the last couple of years, do you think he cries himself to sleep at night, like knowing that Russ is stuck in Seattle and he's not going to see him on a different team? Do you think, I mean, does he go to therapy over it? Like, what's Florio do here? He's got to be distraught, right?
He'll just hold on to that idea that, well, eventually quarterbacks move on. And so he'll just keep moving the goalposts. That's what he has to do.
For sure. What a fun saga. Hooray, media.
But we got through it. This is the good news, is that it only lasted 2 months. We all got through it, and now it's over, right? Right.
Right. Well, catfish better well be.
Well, Tyler Lockett's not going anywhere. He's a part of this now, too. Signed an extension through 2025. He adds 4 years to his deal. That's a $17 million average per year. And looking at the contract structure, when you first heard it, just the way the contracts have been going for just around the league, really, you're wondering, okay, are there going to be void years that are inflating this amount? Is it a legit 5-year deal? Is it a 3-year deal? But are there extra years that, he's really not going to see? Looking at the contract, it looks like a legit 5-year deal and a reasonable deal. I feel like the Seahawks got another deal from Tyler Lockett.
Absolutely. I think everybody won here, right? Like, Tyler got paid, and he got paid pretty well.
Yeah.
I think up to the level of his reputation in the league. And the Seahawks, that's still much less than what he probably would get on the open market, right?
Probably. I mean, considering the top guys are coming in over 20 per year now. And I don't know if I necessarily put Tyler.
Well, the hard part with him, right? If you're trying to decide, is he one in the top tier of receivers in this league, is that the way Tyler does it is not flashy.
Right.
Right. And he just gets it done. It's a little like Tim Brown, right? Like, over the course of his career, like, never really did much that was flashy, but catfish did he produce year in and year out. And that's kind of how Tyler is. And so to say, is he in the top tier? Yeah, I think he is. Now, would most people say that? Probably not, because he's not a highlight reel.
Right. And that's why I have a hard time just wondering what his market would be if he were to go out, especially this offseason, when you see Juju Smith-Schuster, and I obviously think Tyler's better than him, but when he puts himself out there and then has to go back and it's, signing another 1-year deal for under $10 million. And I just feel like Tyler, not only is he producing on the field, but he is that guy in the locker room that you want to have. It kind of brings that continuity from the Doug Baldwin, Sidney Rice era. All you hear from the wide receivers is just how close that particular group is. And it was kind of a legacy that started with those guys like Baldwin and Sidney Rice. And so I think having that guy and him also being productive. And when I do look at this, though, I think it will be the last big contract that Tyler Lockett signs, because once he hits the end of this, he's going to be 32. You don't see a lot of guys. I went and looked at the guys who were in the 1,000-yard receiving club for the year. Really only 2 guys over the last 5-6 years. It was Larry Fitzgerald and Julian Edelman who put up 1,000 yards at 32 or older. And really, you don't have to be. 1,000 is a pretty high bar, I think, for an older receiver. If you're still producing at 800, 700 yards at that age, you can still be an important part of the offense.
Yeah, without question. And
I'm talking right, 4 years down the road. We still have good years of Tyler left.
Yeah, they're all going to be good years of Tyler Lockett. Like, one of the big things that about his game that I don't think is talked about enough is his toughness, his availability. He plays week in and week out, right? I mean, he's played through so many different injuries and then still produced. You said, well, I don't know what he's going to get on the open market. And you mentioned Juju, right? Yeah, he's better than Juju. Is he as good as Kenny Golladay?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because
and
he's available.
Got the bank. Yeah, he just got paid.
That's
so,
true.
Yeah, I think he probably would have ended up with a contract somewhere around there, considering his age, his production, and all that. So what does that tell you, this contract? The idea that Tyler is like, all right, I'll take the assurance that I'm getting paid long-term here. This is probably going to be my last big deal. It's not top of the market dollars, but it's really good money. And I'm not a dumbass. I'll spend it right. You know, he's a smart guy.
Yeah.
Also, do you think Tyler signs a long-term deal if he doesn't feel that Russell's going to be the quarterback long-term?
He's not gonna sign a long-term deal if it's Geno taking over for the next couple of years.
Hell no. Absolutely not. So, yeah, that contract and that extension, it was great news on a bunch of different levels, and I'm very happy for Tyler. I love having him on the team. I can't wait to watch him and DK go to work over the next, 4 or 5 years here. It's going to be great.
Yeah, DK is the next guy who's going to be paid as soon as his time is available, and
he's going to get paid.
He's going to get paid. Yeah, you have to, and yeah. Really, it makes sense when you draft those guys and you're able to keep them on the team. Mm-hmm. And a guy like DK, you're going to end up paying him at the, near the top of the market when it's his time. It's like having an elite quarterback.
Yeah. Good luck drafting another DK Metcalf.
Well, the other cool thing is that Tyler, he's already 5th all time for receiving leaders in Seattle. Just 2 years like the one that he had last year and the year before. He's going to be passing Doug Baldwin, who's number 3. 3 years down the road, he's going to be passing Brian Blades. So this gives Tyler the opportunity, too, when paired with Russell Wilson and DK Metcalf, that he could end up being the number 2 guy in Seahawks franchise history for receiving yards by the time he's done.
Right. So in 4 years, we'll probably be talking about the top 3 being Largent, Lockett, and Metcalf.
Yeah.
I mean, that's in range.
Especially if Metcalf's breaking off 1,200 yard seasons year after year for the next 2-3 years. Then he's going to be right up there.
Yeah. Well, and don't forget, Russ has changed Pete's philosophy, and they're going to be throwing the ball all over the yard now. So
that's right. Some other news that we got. I don't know if we had this news about Gabe Jackson's extension the last time we talked, but he had 2 years left on his deal. And when the Seahawks traded for him, he did a press conference with the media and asked him about his contract. And he said he signed a little extension. Turns out the little extension just means 1 year, which I guess is about as small as you can go. And they did tack on an extra year. It made his base salary, his cap number his base salary at the minimum, but then got a $10 million signing bonus. So gave him a cap number of $4 million for 2021. So helping make some of these re-signings possible of veterans. And we get another year of Gabe Jackson.
Yeah. I'd like to see what the first year looks like still, but I'm hopeful, right? I mean, he's a guy with a track record, and I think he will be a quality addition to the offensive line. And yes, this felt like this 1 year extension, this felt like part of the cap wizardry, right? Mm-hmm. Like just trying to deal with this year, the funky cap this year, knowing that the TV deals that are being signed right now are astronomical, and that you're going to have a lot more wiggle room going forward.
And it makes sense for the player in this situation because he was due to make $10 million in 2021. So here's your $9 million signing bonus. You get your $1 million base salary, and you're essentially made whole for this year. And then, nothing's guaranteed down the future, but if they do decide to cut him in 2022, if, say they draft a dude who is better and $6 million, and you have to take a $3 million cap hit because you're spreading out the bonus over those couple of years. But it's, that's not an astronomical number that, teams deal with dead money in those kind of situations all the time. So it just allows them to field a competitive team in 2021 because of with the cap being what it is and having to deal with that nonsense.
I also think that the Dunlap and Reed news hadn't come down the pike last time we talked.
Yeah, I think that news just hit as we were recording that day. So maybe we didn't give our chance to give full thoughts on it, but hey, yeah. I'm down to talk the return of Carlos Dunlap anytime. But we did hear the piece of news, though, that Reed was given the opportunity to essentially spread out his $10 million cap hit over 2 years by, I guess it would be signing an extension, but it was an extension with a void year. So it really wouldn't have extended his time in Seattle. It sounded like he wanted a longer term deal with the Seahawks, and they weren't willing to give it to him. And so he said, yeah, I'll go play somewhere else. And he ends up going to play somewhere else for the Chiefs and taking less money to do it, which is a little bit weird.
Yeah, I think he screwed up there. But then again, re-signing Dunlap was gigantic, obviously. And I don't think we need to talk about it much because everybody else has kind of covered it pretty well. But this move with Reed, I really agree with, right? Because he kind of got paid for that 1 year that he had the 10 plus sacks there, right? And hasn't really produced, from that standpoint.
He led the team in pressures last year.
Yeah. When did most of his sacks and pressures come last year? It was after Dunlap was signed.
Right?
Or was traded for.
Yeah.
So once you had that top tier pass rusher that was, the straw that stirs the drink, so to speak, that's when Reed kind of can feast, right? When the attention of the blocking schemes and stuff isn't on him mainly, right? When he's not expected to be the guy rushing the passer, then yeah, he can be a productive guy. But the second you get a number one pass rusher out of the mix and he's just surrounded by a bunch of other B players, because that's what he is, a B player, he fades away. So why pay a guy B plus A minus money, which is what he was getting, right? That's a solid B player, especially.
I think he was getting B money because when you're talking about interior defensive guys that are A money, it's, upwards of 17, 18 million.
Yeah. For the dollar, I think you can bring in 2 or 3 more guys, right? And have the same sort of production. I don't see Jarran Reed as an integral part of this defense at all. He had his big sack year when Frank Clark was rushing the passer, right? And having his big year. And then Frank Clark leaves and he disappears. Then he finally reappears when Carlos Dunlap appears. So I've never been a gigantic Jarran Reed fan, and I think he's kind of overrated. In the idea of getting him off your books and freeing up some cap money in a tough year, I'm with it.
I think he still had some of the pressure numbers early on in the season, but yeah, he didn't have the sack numbers. And I think that they could have done it. They could have made it work. But I still think that I go back to some of the things that we've talked about in the past, like when you're paying an interior guy, especially a defensive interior guy, $20 million, top of the market money. And obviously Jarran Reed's not in that category, but they have enough guys in the middle now that they are paying. And I include Bobby Wagner in that number too, because that shores up the middle of your defense, having a star middle linebacker. And when you're starting to get up to over 30 million for your starters of those guys, then that can have a big impact on where you can pay other groups, whether it's offensive line, whether it's, on the defensive back side of the football. So I think long-term that Jarran Reed wasn't in their plans because they see Poona Ford being a part of their plans on the interior. They still see Bobby Wagner being a part of their plans at middle linebacker. So they ended up taking that hit now. And I would have liked to see Reed stick around for a year, continued to be paired with Carlos Dunlap, but they do have quite a bit of depth on the defensive line. They're able to get Al Woods back.
Yeah, I mean, would I rather have him playing? Sure. But at the end of the day, you can free up some cap money and spread it around a little differently. And, they have bigger needs right now. I mean, whether that's corner or possibly re-signing KJ, right? That's been awfully quiet. Have you heard any sort of rumors about any other teams reaching out to KJ? Anything like that? Or is this starting to feel like he's one of those pieces that gets signed after the draft, after teams go through and they, miss a guy here or don't get that pick that they wanted. And then they say, hey, well, here's aging KJ Wright. He can still produce, and offer him like a vet minimum. Because it feels like this is where it's going.
Well, we're in that time of the free agency period where if teams are worried about comp picks, they'll only be signing veteran minimum. If they're going to offer him a veteran minimum deal now, they can get him under contract and it doesn't impact any of that compensatory pick situation for him to go somewhere else. In terms of the teams, I did hear a little bit about the Cowboys, and with Dan Quinn being there, that makes a little bit of sense of him going and reuniting there with the former defensive coordinator. That would be really gross, though. Like, I would pay him double just to come back to Seattle to avoid the Cowboys. But that's why I don't manage the cap, because I manage with emotion.
Right. The longer this seems to drag out, it feels more likely that your inner emotional GM will be satisfied that KJ will be back. So that's a good thing. Yeah, it's just interesting to see how the league values him right now, even though he had a very productive year last year. So he has always had a reputation, and it's unsung and it's underrated, and it seems to be carrying over now into free agency. And at the end of the day, that might work out in our favor.
Right. It's working out, I think, for a lot of the B and C level players. And KJ is a B plus, easy. If not
but
an A.
Somehow is valued around the league as a C.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think a bit of that could have to do with age, obviously, and some of his, I won't say injury history, because he's
always available.
He's always available, but he's dealt with lingering type issues. But gosh, you just haven't seen it a whole lot with his play on the field. So it's a little bit weird to me that there hasn't been more interest around the league in KJ.
Right. So,
and maybe it is with him being an outside linebacker, but I think, gosh, even a team who needs an inside linebacker, whether they're a 4-3 or a 3-4, KJ could play that spot.
Right. For sure. I think he does fit better in a 4-3, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see. So that's something to keep your eye on. That's kind of the last bigger piece that I've been kind of keeping my eye on here to see, hey, do we get to have KJ back? And I think if you do that, I start to feel a little differently than I did in the last podcast, right? Or 2 podcasts ago. You make a couple good moves here, and all of a sudden you feel like you're right back in the mix and competitive for this year to be in it.
Well, they were 12-4 last year. It's not like they have
the 12-4 part,
to
with the way the team played throughout the year, it just did not feel like a 12-4 team.
It's the way it ended. Absolutely.
And the way it started, the way the defense was just a joke show.
Yeah.
For the first 6 weeks. I am just as butthurt and disappointed over the first 6 weeks with the defense playing like it did as I am over the second half of the year when the defense played great and the offense just turned into a puddle of suck.
It was a very frustrating season. So I can, if people on the team and within the organization felt as frustrated as we did as fans, then yeah, I could see why all this stuff kind of bubbled up after the season.
Yeah. That was a very weird and disappointing exit to a year, especially with that Rams gut punch at the end. But
and a year where you can literally point fingers at just about anybody and say they screwed up there, that dude screwed up here, that guy could have been better. It's there's just so many different places where you can point that finger.
Right, and then you can turn around and point the finger back the other way and be like, yeah, but we ripped it up for this part of the year. We were awesome.
Yeah, we were
that part of the year.
It wasn't me.
Right. Yeah. So it's just oddball stuff. But yeah, I think that more or less that gets us through most of the Seahawks news, right?
Yeah, it does look like Al Woods, his contract details came out, $2.5 million, and it's just a 1-year deal, no void years.
So I mean, I think we can all agree Al Woods is 75% of Jaron Reed, right?
Yeah, I don't think he's the guy who's going to give you a ton of pressure, but he's a guy who can plug up the middle for the runs. And if they see LJ or Puna maybe even growing into that role that Jaron played, then and judging by the $7.5 million that they gave Puna for his second year on his 2-year deal, maybe they see that being part of his role now.
I think they're looking at all those young guys, right? Whether it's Green or Collier or, any of those guys that have been drafted recently. And they're like, well, this is why we drafted you. It's time now. Like, we're going to see if you put up or shut up,
Jaron Reed not coming back, and the Seahawks not bringing back Quinton Dunbar.
Hooray!
I see Joe Fan tweeting that it's a shame that the Seahawks couldn't get Quinton Dunbar back at this number because essentially it's a veteran minimum contract.
Did Joe Fan get high before he wrote that?
I don't know. If he's getting the veteran minimum,
if the deal is more than $1, then it wasn't worth bringing Quinton Dunbar back.
Yeah, there are a lot of people who are high on the idea of bringing Dunbar back for 2021.
Absolutely not. I never want to see him in a Seahawks uniform ever again.
After what we had to go through with the drama last season, do people forget that? Do they forget about all that?
The drama, and then let's just talk about production on the field. He sucked balls. Like I could, my grandmother could go out there and perform better.
Can we bring Kerry Williams back for the veteran minimum to play next year?
Yeah, I think Dion could go out there and still be better, and he's like 96 now.
I mean, I was wondering if maybe he could, when healthy, get back to some of that form that...
Why? I don't want to deal with it.
No, I'm okay with it. It's just surprising to see those words together, that it's a shame that the Seahawks couldn't get Dunbar back, and really at any number, but it wasn't a guy that just was on my radar. I'm fine. Draft a guy.
Exactly. Because John Schneider will probably find a way to trade for some DB from the Patriots that nobody's ever heard of to come in and produce, and he'll trade like a bag of footballs for him like he always does.
Yeah, and that's if they don't draft a guy.
Yeah.
Another guy who is, I think, on Seahawks fans' radar, Austin Blythe, and maybe because of his Rams connection, but he ends up going to the Chiefs, but not really a guy who was discussed. It kind of seemed like the Chiefs and the Vikings, and just goes to the Chiefs on a 1-year, $1.75 million deal. Apparently he grew up in Kansas City. He's a Chiefs fan, so that made some sense for him. But I guess, I'm not too disappointed there if Waldron didn't see him being a guy that they needed to bring in, and if the Rams didn't see him as a guy that they wanted to re-sign, then okay.
Yeah, and again, they got to really be careful with how they spend every dollar this offseason. And I'm not sure. I think in a different year, maybe they go after him.
Maybe. Yeah, if they hadn't just paid Posek $3 million, and they're bringing in a bunch of guards for veteran guard depth right now.
Yeah, it's going to be okay.
I think Chance Warmack might be back. He was in for a visit. Yeah.
I did not see that.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay, well, that might be something there. You never know.
Maybe Warmack gets a second chance.
Maybe. This is kind of the time of year where you go, okay, are our biggest things figured out? And if you have a viable plan for all of the bigger holes on your roster, and then, you try to just fill in with other piece parts as you go throughout the later part of the offseason. But you just want to have the big things kind of on lockdown. And I think the only thing that we're looking at this point is corner. Right? With the departure of Shaq. And I know they signed Weatherspoon and all that, but I do feel like they're a corner away still. And that's not Quinton Dunbar. So that's not...
you want to get better.
Yeah. Well, I want somebody who knows that they're playing football when they're out there.
Like Richard Sherman.
I would totally bring Sherm back. And everybody's like, well, I don't know if Russ could handle Sherm running his mouth again in the locker room and all that. It's like, okay, times have changed.
Have you seen Sherman talking about Jimmy G down in San Francisco and hyping him up?
Right.
He's just a team dude.
Yeah. And Sherman's matured. Russ is matured. Everything is going to be fine if you bring Sherm back for a year. And can he be a replacement level corner at this point in his career? Absolutely. He could even be a little better than that still. Now, I don't know what he wants money-wise. And can you rely on him for an entire season? I don't know. I mean, at his age, that's tough to say. But I would absolutely be 100% on board in bringing Sherm back. Have him finish out his career as a Seahawk. Every part of that feels right.
And it might just be a timing thing, like with KJ. Once the draft, once you get past the draft and some of those other veterans, they tend to sign, or either after the draft, maybe they want to skip out on mini camps and wait until the training camp right before the year. So yeah, it just may be a matter of timing.
And if you're Sherman, this would be something that knowing the way that Sherman thinks a little bit, I would want to come back, because if you do come back, this team has a legit shot to win a Super Bowl. Now, is it they're the odds-on favorite? No, nothing like that. But they're in the mix, and if everything breaks just right, they win you could win another chip, right, with the Seahawks, and then you could ride off into the sunset, and you could say they only win championships when I'm there.
Yeah, the Shaquille O'Neal, Kobe conversation, right?
I think it'd be really
Russ
fun.
Couldn't do without me.
Yeah, you're a legend at that point, even though you already are, right? Like, you'd be even more legendary.
Right.
Yeah.
I like it. Michael Paul writes in, says, since you and Adam are clearly draft capital and contract experts, puts a little winky emoji there. Mm-hmm. He says, I was wondering if you could explain what you know about these void years. When a player signs a contract and it's announced as 3 years, $18 million, but then reports come out that the third year is a void year, so it's really a 2-year, $9 million or whatever, does that mean that the money in the third year doesn't matter? The player never gets it if the contract is voided? It just doesn't count as a cap hit? Why would a player sign it if they knew there's a high probability they never see it? Why would the team offer it? What's the benefit? I know the cap is a combination of black magic, voodoo, astrology, and mythology, but there must be a reason, right? Why not just sign a 2-year, $9 million deal? Also, I recall years ago, Adam claiming that dating a 40 Weiner fan would be a deal breaker when he matched with one. But I also thought I recall hearing that the Acid Queen was from San Francisco and was wondering if she was the same person. Thanks for the show. Catfish! The Lambs. Catfish! The Weiners. Catfish! The Cardinals. Catfish! The Bears and all their fans for thinking we're trading Russ. Catfish! Russ just a little bit for being a bit of a whiny drama queen this offseason, but only just a little. Go Hawks. Go Penny, from Michael.
Yeah. Catfish! Come on. Catfish! All those folks. So I'll work backwards here a little bit, because those are the easier questions to answer. No, Brittany lived in San Francisco, not a Niners fan, has Seahawks gear. So it's all good.
It's all good. Okay.
Now working backwards. To the void years. I am going to really try hard to explain this by asking you to explain it. But I actually do think I get the gist of it.
And really the gist of it is, when you see a 3-year, $18 million deal, they want to include the signing bonus in that amount, but they want to spread out the signing bonus over 3 years rather than 2 years. And so that fake third year, they can assign an amount to that third year. And this is the part that I don't understand, because this goes to the Taysom Hill thing when they said it was a 4-year, $140 million deal for Taysom Hill. And really, it's like a 2-year, I don't know, $20 million deal or whatever it was. I don't know the exact details on that, but they're signing him for a 4-year deal so they can spread out the signing bonus over those void years. But he's only under contract for the 2 years. So he has a base salary assigned to those 2 years. And then the void years, once they void, you're still stuck paying that signing bonus, but you're not paying whatever additional amount that was reported. So it gives the player an opportunity to say, yes, I signed this big deal. It gives the team an opportunity to spread out the signing bonus. And that's the main takeaway, that when you see void years, it's just so the team can spread out the signing bonus beyond the main part of the contract.
And the way that I understand it, it's not necessarily spreading out the signing bonus, the money the player gets up front, right, by signing.
Right.
It's spreading out the cap hit of the signing bonus.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Because the most you can spread out a signing bonus is 5 years. You can't spread it out any longer than that. And so if you look at the Patrick Mahomes deal, the way they structured that, it's a 10-year deal when he first signed it. And then they give him a huge signing bonus, but they're able to spread out that signing bonus over 5 years. And then what they're going to start doing is every single year, they're going to restructure his deal. It'll spread out that signing bonus to the extra year. And then that'll allow them to have him at a relatively friendly cap hit for as long as possible.
Yep. Exactly.
But he doesn't have void years. He has actual years with base salary assigned to him.
Right. And I think when these GMs do this void year stuff, they actually have to sacrifice a live chicken and probably pray to some god somewhere along the way.
I think of it as charging a little bit of that signing bonus to the player as putting it on your credit card that you have to pay 3-4 years down the road as a void year.
Yeah, with almost reverse interest, right? Because with the cap going up, that hit doesn't hurt as much.
Yeah, they're not paying interest on it.
Right. Yeah, it's reverse interest. Yeah. It almost goes down in value, right?
Right, because the salary cap gets inflated, and then so that percentage of the cap becomes smaller and smaller the farther you get out into the contract.
And you make a voodoo doll, and like I said, you do some sort of wizardry, right?
Yeah, the salary cap stuff is wizardry, but I do think that the Seahawks tend to approach it in a way that's smarter than some of the other teams. And, well, I suppose you can say smarter, but it just depends on
Rams.
It depends on where the team is at in terms of win now type mode. The New Orleans Saints were trying to stay in win now mode for as long as possible, knowing that when Drew Brees retired, it was going to have an impact.
Right.
And they're dealing with that now.
And you saw the Patriots do that and have to deal with it last year and then be in a really good position the year, the next year. Their salary cap,
where they could go nuts in free agency this year.
Yeah, exactly. I also kind of want to talk a little bit about some of our divisional rivals. I guess maybe just one in particular, but I don't know. Do you want to do that on the other side of the break, or do you want to do it now?
Let's hit it after the break. And we're now moving on into the second half of the show. Catfish! You brought it up before the break, Adam. Let's talk NFC West.
Yeah, and specifically Niners, right?
That kind of seemed like the team. We did talk about them moving up to number 3 here on the last show.
Yeah. And the conversation since then in the media has been freaking hysterical. I want to know, Brandon, because you're good at this sort of stuff. Is Mac Jones's agent also Chris Sims's agent?
I don't think he is. I think the only guy who has one of the primo agents is Trey Lance. And some of the other guys are with, agencies that, they're big agencies, but I don't think that they share them with. I feel like CAA is the one that is the one that so many arrows have been drawn back to. And I just haven't seen any kind of arrows with Mac Jones and some of the things that are being said about him. I think that Chris Sims is legitimate when he's thinking the type of quarterback that Kyle Shanahan has had historically is a QB like Mac Jones.
Oh my gosh. I think the only reason Chris Sims is saying what he is at this point is because him and Kyle Shanahan go on couples retreats together, like in the off season. I mean, this is the biggest load of BS I have ever heard in my entire life. And everybody's like, just like you were saying here, well, you look at his track record and the quarterbacks that, he's had success with, like these are Mac Jones type guys, right?
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins,
Matt Ryan.
Yeah. Was Kyle Shanahan in charge of drafting those players?
No.
So he just worked with those players because they're what he had. Am I right?
That makes all the sense. So why would you?
Oh, okay. And Kyle Shanahan also is a head coach in the National Football League, where we've all known and have figured out that the statue quarterback is a dinosaur and a dying breed, right? Like we all know that to be a true fact at this point, right?
It's definitely a dying breed. Yes.
Right. So you're telling me that Kyle Shanahan, the offensive guru, just because he's had the Matt Ryans of the world in his past, has traded a bunch of draft capital to move up to 3 to draft a fat, slow, unremarkable quarterback in every way over any of these other dudes that are dynamic and actually fit the mold of, and not only that, Mac Jones looks a lot like the quarterback he already has.
Other than saving against the cap so you can pay other places, why would you go out and get a guy who is just like the one that you had, although you know what you have, and there's some risk associated with going and drafting a guy out of, and I suppose health. So you know what? Maybe it does make sense, because I can talk myself into it and say, well, you know, Mac Jones, he'll have health and he'll have the lower cap hit, and so you know that it's just plug him in and he can be what you want Jimmy G to be. So from that standpoint, I can understand.
Hold on though. So you draft Mac Jones for those reasons, right? So for the lower cap hit and the health, right?
Yeah.
Why would you not get the lower cap hit and health with either Fields or Lance? Wait, like, do they not offer those things? Do they not? Can they not also stay healthy? And then not only that, but then offer the extra dynamic of being able to run with a guy who is a very creative coach when it comes to the run scheme, right? Why would you not want a guy that brings that extra level to the playing field? Ask any defensive coach what kind of quarterback they hate playing the most, and it's a mobile guy. And you're going to draft Mac freaking Jones, number 3. And not only that, they wouldn't have this out there right now if that's what they wanted to do. They wouldn't. There's some sort of game here that's being played. I don't know what it is, but the idea that they're going to draft Mac Jones, mark it down right now. I even saw a headline today, almost a lock to go number 3 in the draft. Catfish! It won't happen. It is not going to be Mac Jones ever. It won't. Mark it down.
The only game I can see being played here is that they would love it if Zach Wilson fell to them. So who can they talk up to those 2 teams ahead of them that allows one of the quarterbacks that they would like just a little bit more to fall to them at number 3?
No. And because Mac Jones wouldn't be the guy that you talk up. Basically, the way the QBs look, and this is just cursory to, I haven't really gotten super deep into this, but you start looking at it. Trevor Lawrence is the number 1 guy just because he's been doing it for a long time. He's got a long track history, and you know what you're getting, right? You know what you're getting in Trevor Lawrence. And then it's Zach Wilson or Justin Fields, whatever flavor you like there. And then it's Trey Lance. And then there's other guys.
That's what I'm saying. If Wilson is the guy Fields that they like better than Fields.
Yeah, so you talk up Fields so that the Jets would then draft Fields, right?
Except, yeah, I don't know.
The idea of Mac Jones is like, I don't understand this one for the life of me. Like, this is one of the dumbest rumors I have seen in a while.
In terms of accuracy, is Fields on par with Jones? I think it's pretty close, right?
Yes.
Okay, so
I'd say Jones is a better decision maker, but that's it. That's the only thing that Mac Jones does better than Justin Fields. That's it.
It makes the decisions pretty easy when you're throwing to wide open guys all the time.
And that's the thing. In that scheme with all that talent, right? And you saw Justin Fields go out and ball out when half of his team had corona. And the idea that Justin Fields can't get off his first read, I mean, after going and really looking through a lot of Fields' work, it's not true. It's not true that he can't get off his first read. Can he be a little slow to process information from time to time? Yes. He also, one of his worst games was against Indiana. And you watch what that defense did. Brett Coleman did a great breakdown on his YouTube channel. It's really long, but Indiana was playing all sorts of crazy defensive games that were like NFL level stuff. And they have a safety that just flat out tricked him a couple times. Like he was doing some high level stuff. So yeah, does that mean he's going to have to work at it a little bit in the NFL? Sure. Does somebody like Kyle Shanahan have the offensive system to really work with a guy like that? Absolutely. There's no way they're taking Mac Jones.
for an offensive-minded coach like Shanahan, why you would pass up on having a player with the added dynamic that can put pressure on a defense. Yeah, I don't understand passing that up at all.
Nope, makes zero sense. Now, if they do end up drafting Trey Lance instead, okay, I probably would take Fields over Lance at this point, just because Lance is a bit more of a wild card.
Yeah.
There's just not a lot to work with in terms of how much tape he has out there and that sort of thing. He seems to be a talented guy, but it's a little more of a roll of the dice. And the idea, too, that Fields has been just ripped apart in the media over the last couple months. This was the guy that was being touted as, well, do you take Lawrence or Fields? I don't know. This is a real question. You saw him go out there and thump Clemson, too. Outduel Lawrence, and now he's terrible, and they're not going to take him at 3. Yeah, I don't think so.
See, Fields, maybe he has an agent problem. Like maybe he signed with the wrong agency, and so that's they're going after him now.
My guess is that most of this negative press about Fields is to try to basically change the perspective on him and allow him to drop in the draft to some teams that are in the mid, from 15 to like 5, right? They're just hoping that Fields could possibly drop to them, whether you're the Broncos or the Patriots or, teams like that, right? They're just trying to ruin his draft stock.
Yeah, it has to be. Yeah, because he's with Athletes First, which Aaron Rodgers is there, Clay Matthews, no slouch agency, so.
No, this is this part of the draft silly season is unbelievable. Like the Mac Jones hype is just absurd. It's like when they were talking up. I mean, to me, Mac Jones is very much like Josh Rosen.
Yeah, okay.
He can throw the ball. He does quarterback things, but he does nothing special.
The thing that's kind of a bummer, though, about this season is that all this hype around Mac Jones is going to... he's got to hear it. And so he could be one of those guys, though, that teams will throw out there as a guy that they're looking at when really they're looking at another guy who other people maybe aren't talking about so much in the media. And then Jones ends up falling and doesn't know why. And he ends up being a guy who's taken at the end of the first round. And
yes,
yeah, when he's just being used as a smokescreen by these teams.
Oh, yeah, he's totally being used. The exact scenario you just laid out, I would put money on that. Him having an Aaron Rodgers, Lamar Jackson kind of fall.
Because who's the other guy that, and I think Brett and EJ Snyder on their Bootleg Football podcast, they were talking about another dude who's just not getting a lot of run, who's a late first, early second, a lot like Mac Jones.
So the one name I've heard thrown around, and I've yet to look at 1 second of their play, is I think it's Kellen Mond.
Yeah, that's who it is. Mond.
I'm intrigued. I can't. I'm looking forward to watching that and seeing what we see.
Yeah, and I think Rob Staten's even said that he's high on him too. So it seems like he's a guy that is more of that, and kind of in that same mold, but obviously not playing for Alabama. He's not getting talked about like Mac Jones.
Sure.
But still, Texas A&M, that's a big school.
It feels like Mod, and again, I haven't looked at his stuff, so I can't really say anything about his play at all to this point. He's kind of getting the Dak Prescott treatment in this draft.
Well, we'll see where he goes. I did see that somebody mock drafted a quarterback to the Seahawks with their second round pick.
No, not this year.
It was Kyle Trask out of Florida.
Huh. I remember watching a little bit of his stuff last year, and no, thank you.
But he's 6'5". That seems like a guy that'll go to the Broncos.
Probably. Yeah. Well, although Elway is out of power there now.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm being told. I don't know. I was talking to our friend Jared yesterday, and noted Broncos fan, and I was asking about Locke. He's like, I really want them to give Locke another year. Sure. I want to see one more year. So I think that's what you'll see in Bronco land, unless one of these guys really falls in the first round.
Well, they didn't trade for Sam Darnold.
Yeah, I don't know how much of an upgrade Sam Darnold is over Locke. I think he is. That's going to be fascinating to watch what happens with him in the Panthers. Fascinating. That's going to be a real case study of, I mean, a lot like Tannehill, right?
Yeah,
just in a bad situation.
The exact name I was thinking.
Yeah.
Former Adam Gase pick at quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a good gamble by Carolina.
Yeah, if I'm a Carolina Panthers fan, I'm happy about that move.
Oh, they were fired up. Yeah,
Oh,
I was listening.
Okay.
I was listening to some Panthers fans after the move, and they liked it a lot.
Yeah, I think, and for what they gave up too, right? It was like a second and a fourth or something.
It was, I think, a second, fourth, and sixth. The sixth was this year. The second was next year. So the 2022 draft.
Right.
So that's not a lot.
No, not for a guy that went 3, just what, 2.5, 3 years ago?
Yeah, 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Because he's going into his 4th year. So this will be a $4 million year for him. And then his 5th year option, if they decide to exercise it, I think is $18 million.
Yeah.
They do have to make a decision on that this year. So that'll be interesting to see what they decide to do with that.
I think you just do it.
Maybe.
Well, for the draft capital he gave up, roll for 2 years.
It's
pick up the option, roll for 2 years.
It makes it a little bit more of a gamble, but yeah.
It's still, I mean, if you're the Panthers, you're gambling on a quarterback no matter what, right? So if you gave up this draft capital, you might as well really give your gamble a chance to pay out.
Because if he does work out really well, then you're definitely paying him more than 18 next year. And it's still a bit of a risk.
Yeah, it's called life.
Well, people who are taking a risk on this podcast, Adam, let's welcome some new members of the flock. Thank our executive producers, Dustin Mock, Brian Shaw, and Young Choi.
Oh, yeah. God amongst men. We know that for sure. And you said we even have new little flockers this week?
We have one new little flocker this week.
We're on a good string for the offseason.
It is.
I'm very impressed.
I know. We'll go shows without it. But see, Rob knew that if he didn't get in, we weren't going to do a show until we got a new member of the flock. And so Rob R came in at $3 a month. And welcome to the flock to Rob. And here we are. We're doing a show. It's all thanks to Rob.
It is all thanks to Rob. He's our savior this week. And I think he should feel pretty good about himself right now.
Absolutely. Didn't send us a note, but he goes down in the books now as savior of episode 330.
Right. This is all him. So, Rob R., you're the man.
I do have to announce, though, I have to end the promotion for the stainless steel cups. I'm almost out. That promotion works so well of people moving from monthly to annual, like JC Stringer, who moved from monthly to annual.
Yes.
And yeah, so thanks to JC, she received her cups for the Stringer family already. And I actually had them in the mail before she upgraded, but.
No, that's awesome. And I think people seem to be pretty fired up when they get them. Like it seems to be a popular thing. Folks are liking them.
Yeah. So maybe I have to get more so we can continue the promotion. But for now, it has to end.
Suspended.
There we go.
Not end. Suspended. And if anybody questions it, just blame Corona, because that's what we do now, right?
That's right. Steel. Oh, steel's in short supply because of Corona.
Yeah. How come you didn't mow the lawn today? Corona.
Your new lawnmower blade, they're held up in China.
It's been the greatest procrastination excuse probably of the last 50 years, right?
Yeah, we really don't have to do anything.
No. Corona.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Got a review in here from Apple Podcasts. GD in Australia says, brilliant. 5 stars, the best football podcast in any football code I have heard. Funny with great analysis. I think this was meant for our show. I may have stole that from another show.
Well, look, if it was from another show, it fits our show. That's the way I would put it. Because it's spot on.
Yeah, it came into my inbox, so it just doesn't really sound it sounds a little foreign to me, but thanks to GD.
Why does it sound foreign to you? Just because we're the best in any of them?
The best
all
of
the football
all
podcasts?
The best of all of them.
Well, you got to believe in yourself a little bit more, it sounds like.
I put us at number 3.
No.
I think there's 2 out there that are better.
Is this something that can fluctuate week to week? Because I'm sure there's some weeks there might be 1 or 2 that's better. But, there's definitely weeks where we're easily hands down the winner.
Yeah. Around the NFL is pretty good. They've been around longer than us.
Sure. But I think we're better.
Okay.
Yeah. I think our, 3-cone shuttle time is better than theirs.
That's true. They're like the DK Metcalfs of 3-cone for NFL podcasts.
Right.
All right. Thanks for the review. Michael sends a message in via Patreon. I believe this is where it's from. Says, hey guys, just a random thought. With the Seahawks only having 3 draft picks, I feel they will be a very desirable undrafted free agent destination. And with how different this year has been for evaluation and how good historically Pete and John are, I feel that there will be a lot of good prospects who fall through the net and end up landing in Seattle and being on the roster. Go Hawks.
That's a solid point. I hadn't thought about that at all. But everything about that message is on point in terms of, yes, the Seahawks are really good at finding undrafted guys. Yes, it is a destination. Guys know they get a legit shot when they come to Seattle to be a guy who makes that active roster. So, and again, with this Corona stuff, it has been an odd year, and there probably are going to be more guys than usual that fall through the guy. This is genius commentary. This is why we're the best podcast in all the podcasts, because we have listeners like this who not only listen to the podcast and get our genius, but then add to the genius of it with genius commentary like this. It's brilliant.
It's what makes us number 1 overall.
Yeah. See, now you're getting it.
The Bard checks in, says, hi, fellas. Hey, I got a parcel in the post, and now I have 2 podcast drinking cups. So cheers for that first of all. Now send beer, please. I also like cake, and this is the point of my latest contribution. But bear with. Now I have watched with amusement everyone over there renting their spleen and moaning and groaning on the various sites. Now, how many column inches did Russell receive over here? 0, zit, nada, nothing. One word comes to mind that Adam told me. Clickbait. Now all the hoopla is over. Let's get back to cake and the Seahawks free agency. Finally, the Seahawks have baked their free agency cake. As for the ingredients, well, nothing grabbed me by the whatnots. But then I came to realize that on their own, I don't like flour or raw egg or milk. That's what I felt our transactions were. Basic ingredients with no champagne or gold foil added. However, when mixed together, the cake was not too bad. So I am happy with cake. Well, yes, overall, it's quite tasty, and people should enjoy it saying, nice cake. On thinking further, though, what kind of a cake is it? That's the point. Is it a wedding cake with many layers? A fabulous icing that looks wonderful? No, it's not. Maybe it's basic sponge cake with a bit of jam that goes down well with a cup of tea. What kind of cake, then, fellas, do you think the Seahawks have baked? Do you have a top 10 of cakes we can slot the Seahawks cake into? Something to consider for the offseason. Would a wide receiver or cornerback in the draft put a cherry on top? Enough of this musing and rambling, and no, I haven't lost the plot. Go Hawks from the Bard.
Lot to unwrap there from John.
Cake definitely top of mind.
Yeah. The first part of that was just the phrase, he got a parcel in the post. That sounded a little dirty to me for whatever reason. Like,
it's a euphemism for something.
Yeah, it has to be. Then secondly, I feel like he's telling us all that he's just going to, let them eat cake. Coming from the Brits, that feels about right? That kind of condescending, let them eat cake. There's no problems over there in the UK with Russ. Didn't hear anything about it, and it was just only a problem here. And now the cake is baked, and we got to figure out what kind of cake that cake is. I'm going to go with, what if this is an unusual cake, but maybe one of the best cakes and has a chance at being the best cake in the league this year? I'm going with ice cream cake.
I was thinking ice cream cake too, but I was also on the Seahawks Nest podcast here recently, and we were talking about pie. And one of the pies that got eliminated first was cheesecake. They didn't believe that it fit into the category of pie. And so I'm going to now take that and use that here and say cheesecake, because yes, it's one that you wouldn't think of because people aren't sure whether it's pie or cake, but it has cake in the name. and it has the opportunity to be one of the best.
Yeah, I think they had to. I don't think it's technically a cake, but I think they had to call it cheesecake because cheese pie just doesn't sound nearly as appealing.
Doesn't sound good.
Right?
Yeah.
No, that sounds worse somehow.
Also, I have a hard time characterizing everything that went on with Russell Wilson as clickbait. Now, there were aspects of it that were clickbaity, but I go back to that athletic report that Michael Sean Dugar, and he collaborated with Mike Sando and all reputable people, and I think broke it down to trying to get at what the issue was without not obviously knowing exactly what the issues were, but trying to explain that there is something here and it's worth exploring. But then from that, it kind of built on this of, oh yes, he's absolutely gone. They're never going to be able to work it out. It's over with Russell's run in Seattle. And
yeah. Well, I mean, in that article, right, they were just used as Russell Wilson's mouthpiece in.
I don't think so.
Yeah, they were. Dude, they were. And that's okay. It's part of the job. It's part of the job. If you're going to be in the media and as a beat reporter, you're going to get used sometimes to get
I think there were enough sources within that it was well-rounded. And you and I may just have to disagree on this, but
okay. Yeah, because the sources were Russell Wilson's quarterback coach, right? I wonder if they have a relationship. Do you think they're tight and on the same page?
The only thing that I think missed on the balance was representing the Pete Carroll part of the equation.
Okay, and there we go. This is all I'm talking about.
Okay.
All the sources were Russ's buds. All the sources were people that Russ wanted to have say something. They got in touch with a reporter that could say all the things that Russ wanted to say without having to say them publicly. And so then he had them say it for him. That's what that entire article was.
Sure. Yeah, it just, there was some balance to it that there were things in there that didn't necessarily paint Russ in the best light.
Oh, sure. Because if you're those reporters, right, whether you're Michael Sean or Sando, like, you got to do something to save some face when you know you're getting just used.
Yeah, I don't think I'd characterize it that way, but...
Yeah, well, I am. And
okay.
They were. So, there you go. And again, I'm not mad at him for it. There's no shame in it. I get it. I get it. And I appreciate the fact that they allowed themselves to get used so that we could hear some of that stuff. I think it was probably all for the better when it was all said and done. So, I'm not even mad at him.
Okay.
I'm just saying, it's just how it is. And they got used.
One more comment here. Just continuing on with this, we did get an email. I forgot to write down who it was from, but it's Russell's desired trade destinations. And one of our listeners had a theory. Says, okay. I'm working on a theory as to why those 4 teams are Russell's preferred teams to play for, except the obvious choice, the Seahawks. He wants to be a Seahawk. Everyone knows this. It doesn't hold up all the way because of the Cowboys, but still, 75% ain't bad, and that there's a twist there. So what does the 3 teams, Bears, Raiders, Saints, what do they have in common? They each play in the same division as a legendary quarterback. Go to the Bears and you get to battle against your arch nemesis, Aaron Rodgers, twice a year. Go to the Raiders, you get to square off against a future GOAT, Patrick Mahomes, twice a year. And go to the Saints and you get a chance to dethrone the GOAT, Brady, twice a year. I'm guessing for another 45 years or so. So the Cowboys doesn't seem likely to face any kind of legendary quarterback in the near future, but instead, Russell gets to install himself in a Brady in the AFC East situation where they're nearly guaranteed to be a perennial division champ in a shitty division. Am I onto something?
100% yes, 0% no. It's a great comment. Because, I mean, if you're Russell Wilson and your goal is to be considered the best to ever do it, and to do that, you're going to have to win either close to as many as Brady or more, then why would you not follow the Brady plan here, right? I mean, he decided, well, he didn't really decide. He ended up in New England, and that happened to work. Yeah, they played in a dysfunctional division for 47 years. And, Russ would have had the run of the NFC East, no doubt about it. But
well, this also lines up, too, going back to what we started off the show talking about with Brandon Marshall. I cut this part out of the clips that, but in that same segment, Marshall was talking about how Russ wants to be compared with, every time you bring up Aaron Rodgers, every time you bring up Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson wants his name among those names. And yeah, if you're either playing in their division with them, and if you're able to, beat them twice a year, then yeah, you're getting talked about among those names. So, downplaying the Cowboys, but I think if you're the Cowboys quarterback, you're getting talked about as, Dak Prescott is, top 10 quarterback, and people talk about him like he's top 5 because he plays for the Cowboys.
We also have to be aware that Russell could end up having a NFC East type situation in the NFC West going forward here over the next few years, right? I mean, let's be real. Let's be real.
Teams making big risks.
Yeah. I mean, I do like the Stafford deal for the Rams if I'm a Rams fan for this year.
Mm-hmm.
I hate it going forward.
He's getting to that age where, even...
he's getting to the age of when Hasselback turned into Fragile Back.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, for guys who aren't the tippy top tiers of dudes that, like Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady, for the very next level down, it is at this age where they tend to go to other teams at the end of their career and maybe have a good year or two. So, yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Yeah. And then you look at the Niners. Sure, they traded up to number 3. Is it a guaranteed thing that whoever they draft at number 3 is going to be a great quarterback? It's 50-50 at best.
I have my concerns based on the Shanahan and Lynch history of making good decisions, but they can absolutely whiff on the quarterback, and having given up 2 first-round picks, they could be bad for a while.
Let's say that the Mac Jones rumor is true and they actually do draft him at that spot. I will be doing jumping jacks and cheering. It's going to be awesome.
I don't know if he is the boomer bust guy, though. I think Trey Lance...
No, he's not the boomer bust guy, because you were to have a question of boom in there. He's definitely a bust.
I think he has the ability to be Jimmy Garoppolo. And they went to the Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo.
Jimmy G is a bust. Why do you think they're trying to move off of him?
He's fine for what he did as a second-round pick.
Sure.
But yes, if you're talking about the 3rd overall quarterback and you're getting, Sam Darnold production, then yes.
Yeah, exactly. And then Kyler? Does anybody think Kyler Murray is going to be a long-term guy in this league?
Yeah, probably not.
Absolutely not. Kingsbury's going to get him killed this year. Then Kingsbury's going to get fired. Then he's going to have to relearn a whole other system as they go through yet another rebuild down in Arizona. He does not have the body to be a long-term starter in this league. He's going to get beat up and he's going to be out of the league before you know it, because that speed is going to go away and you can't live on 5-yard outs.
So we just have to wait out. We have to hope that the 49ers flame out with their pick, wait for the Rams to just be bad based on all of their decisions, trying to go for it and be in win now mode, and let the Cardinals be the Cardinals. And we've got this division locked up for the future.
Abso-freaking-lutely. Win forever, baby.
Last email here from Randy in Fort Jones, California says, so I'm listening to episode 328 last night, nearly a week after it dropped, and one of my verbal pet peeves is dropped by Adam. I yell at the radio, my correction, but nobody responds. I'm kind of a catfish about a few things, and this was one of them. Just like every time I hear my wife say, where are you at? I must respond with, where are you? She knows that I'm a catfish, but she is still here after 29 years, so I must have some redeeming qualities. I decide to let this slip go, and not 12 hours later, I'm listening to episode 329, and I'll be damned if he doesn't do it again. I guarantee that Brandon picked up on it both times, but he isn't a catfish like me. If you take a steak out of the freezer, you are thawing it. If you put "un" in front of thaw, you are putting the steak back in the freezer. Adam, know the difference between thawing and freezing. Do better. While I'm here, I also must ask about the use of shore in the place of sure. Shore is where Michael rowed his boat. Sure, which sounds like her, is an affirmative response. Is this a regional dialect? I have family in Kalispell and Polson, and they don't use sure. I just wanted to poke a little fun. Love you both. Go Hawks. From Randy.
Hey, you know what I appreciate about Randy? He's a fellow lovable catfish.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. Yes, you do have redeeming qualities, Randy.
Yeah. So has the ground up there unthawed, Adam?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, yeah, it got more frozen again. So, according to Randy's definition, yeah,
it has unthawed.
Look, I'm not good, and I'm not the best at the talking. I don't say the good things all the right times. Might use the wrong words now and then. Might mispronunciation things.
Yeah.
I might. Yeah, it's hard telling out knowing what I'm going to say at any given time, mainly because the words are being formed in my brain as they're coming out of my mouth, and so I might make up some along the way. And it's just how it is. It's going to be the same way. And sure, it might annoy you, but it's a true fact. It'll probably never change.
I might say unthaw too.
Yeah,
that's one I have to think about.
I didn't realize that was a part of my vernacular, actually, until just now.
Yeah. Well, Randy pointed it out. There you go. But I think I might say I might pronounce sure incorrect or sure. There's different ways to say it.
Yeah. Maybe. Who knows?
Speaking of different ways to say things, it bugs me when people say data instead of data.
That's one I go back and forth on, actually.
Yeah, a lot of people go back and forth, but why not just pick one?
Yeah, I agree.
And the correct one is data, by the way.
Is that just because that's what they called the character on Star Trek Next Generation?
That's what they called him, that because that's the way you pronounce the word.
Okay. All right. I'm with you.
Okay.
If you can,
that's a good way to remember it, though, just mentally.
Look, I'm still out on the fence on this. You're going to have to bring some good data to the table to really convince me.
Yeah. Well,
I think it depends on the sentence, right?
No, it doesn't. It just
all data all the time.
All data all the time.
All right. The one that kills me is Colorado or Nevada.
Right.
Like what? You drinking your tea with your pinky out when you're talking about these states? It's ridiculous. It's Colorado and it's Nevada. And that's how it is. I looked it up in a book and it's a true fact.
The acid queen's behind you shaking her head.
Yeah, I know, because she's wrong on this too.
See, this is where her time in San Francisco did her no favors, because those are where the pinky out people are that pronounce those places incorrectly.
That's exactly right. And they go to their tailgates for their team and they have a wine and cheese party.
On to do better and better at life.
All right. I don't really know what my do better is going to be. All right, fine. I was talking to you about this before the podcast. My do better this week is for my catfish head landlord, Nick Jr., who I can't stand. I'm so sick of this human being. So my house in Bonner, right? I have a double wide trailer there.
Yeah.
It's in a trailer court. It's a nice court. It's a nice, clean. Everything is nice there. And it's great. It's been a great place to live, but I rent the lot, right? So I own the house, rent the lot. I've decided we're out here at the cabin full time now. Time to sell the place in Bonner. Plus, my kid wants to go to a college. It's like $70,000 a year. I need to make bank on this thing. And right now, the housing market is freaking ridiculous. So I'm like, well, might as well capitalize. Found a really nice young couple who are willing to pay the price for the place. All I need this catfish head landlord to do is just say, yeah, you can rent this lot. That's all I need him to do. It's been 3 catfishing weeks, and this catfish won't give me a catfish call back. And it's costing me money at the end of the day, is what it could do. If this whole market collapsed, because catfishing Nick is being a catfish. And I'm so sick of this guy. Because he expects you to jump when he gives you a phone call. Like, it better be right now. And it's gotten to the point to where I can't even get a ring through on the phone. I'm being like either blocked or I don't know what, just going directly to voicemail. And then the voicemail is catfishing full. This is absolutely absurd. I want to punch Nick in the catfish, and I want him to do better.
We did talk about this before the show, but I think you were a little more colorful with your language this time around.
Look, so part of what we do on this podcast is we try to entertain. So while I'm very upset, that might have been more of a caricature of my feelings than how I express them to you.
Well, one guy who I'm livid pissed at, Michael Strahan.
Really?
Michael Strahan. He announced on March 30th, came out and said he fixed his gap. Michael Strahan, known for the gap in between his teeth, came out March 30th, said, I did it, everybody. The gap is fixed. This is my new smile now. But guess what? He reveals 2 days later, on April 1st, it was all BS. It was all BS. It was just for an April Fool's prank that began 2 days before the actual day.
No.
You can't do this. For one, this stuff lives on the internet forever. The TMZ article that came out about this, Michael Strahan posting it on Instagram, everybody reports on it. Around the NFL did a whole big segment on how disappointing this was that Strahan fixed his gap. And you don't see these sites going back and being able to just take these down or putting a correction up at the top of saying that what they needed to do is just take it down or put a correction up at the top. But this stuff lives on the internet forever. And when the date line is March 30th, you go back and look at it and you say, oh, well, it's, if it were April 1st, then you provide some skepticism. It's absolutely Strahan putting out fake news ahead of April Fool's Day so then he could prank on the actual day. You can't move the goalposts on April Fool's pranking. If you start moving it to 2 days ahead of April Fool's, how early is too early to start? Michael Strahan moving the goalposts on April Fool's, do better.
Absolutely. If it's what's too early, anything before 12:01 a.m. on April 1st, anything before that is too early. Because if you start doing April Fool's stuff before April 1st, you're not a prankster. You're not playing a prank for April Fool's. You're just a liar.
Right.
Any other day, you're just a liar. So Michael Strahan, a liar, and then trying to cover up his tracks by calling it an April Fool's prank. I think you should punch Mike in the catfish.
I did hear that he got a nice payday for it, though, because it was apparently an ad for some dental service. And so.
Oh. Well, you still could have done it on the same day. Yeah.
You
that
have
all
to.
Needed to go down on April 1st.
Now we give Michael Strahan like Houston Astros style treatment for cheating ahead of April Fool's Day. We just now have to boo Strahan every time we see him.
Yeah. He was basically banging a garbage can 2 days before the April Fool's.
It feels
Isn't that
like
what
that
the
to me.
Astros did? They banged on a garbage can to predict the pitches or whatever.
Which pitches, yeah. Jerks.
Yeah. Yep. Out of line, Strahan.
Put them in the same category. Cheaters, liars.
Yeah.
On to Better at Life.
My Better at Life this week is for Black Rover. And they're a company that got us one step closer to realizing your dream, Brandon, of a hoverboard. One step closer. It's not a hoverboard. It's not even kind of close to a hoverboard, but it's a step closer to having a hoverboard.
Yeah, because the people who just put wheels on a board sideways and called it a hoverboard, those guys are also liars.
They are. They're absolute liars, and I'm mad at them. But these guys have made an electric skateboard that is an off-roader. It's got like big tires, man. You can go up to like 17 miles. So like the point of the hoverboard is that you could literally go everywhere, right? You could go over almost all obstacles because you're hovering. This is the closest thing to an actual hoverboard, and they didn't call it a hoverboard. They just called it an electric skateboard.
This is like a Jeep for your feet.
This is a Jeep for your feet. Exactly, Brandon. You're 100% right. And I think it is powered by two 1,000-watt motors like this. It can go up to 25 miles an hour. That's as fast as I'd want to go on a skateboard. I can tell you right now, especially if I'm Jeeping it out in the woods, right?
Yeah.
So to Black Rover, I think they're trying to bring you your dream of a hoverboard better at life than Skip Bayless.
Jeep needs to buy this company out and call this Jeep for your feet.
100%.
Where do we pitch this?
And you should get a 2%, 0.5% royalty on every sale for coming up with the slogan.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We could podcast full time after that.
Yeah. It'd be retired full-time podcasters.
Just need that 0.5% from every sale.
From Black Rover and Jeep. Come on, guys, get it done. Then you'll really be better at life than Skip Bayless.
I thought you were going to bring up the helicopter on on Mars.
Well, yeah, I mean, I just figured I would save that maybe for another week. But yeah, there's legit a helicopter on Mars and a laser. I want to fly the helicopter and shoot the laser on Mars. That's all I want to do.
And we need a 0.5% of the commission for every time people pay to use that service.
Somebody's going to come through and give us money for something we didn't do at all.
But we had a good idea as to how it could be monetized.
Intellectual property, right?
Yeah.
We're basically a better Don Draper.
My better at life this week is we've been talking cap, so I'm going to give it to John Schneider and Matt Thomas for managing the Seahawks cap. They could have just gone into the season and said, okay, well, we'll try and get by with making veteran moves and squeak under the cap, but they've actually been doing something that they haven't done traditionally, and that is move money into void years. And I just think that they're doing it in a smart way that's not aggressive, but allows the team to still field a competitive group of players in 2021, pay players at a fair amount, because some players are getting screwed here. I just feel like they're doing it the right way. Only, I think, around between 7 and 8 million is what they've put off in void money deals to future years. So yes, that's money that helps them be competitive, but not so much money that it's going to be an issue down the road. So for John Schneider and Matt Thomas, better at life than Skip Bayless.
Heck yeah, man. Smart wizards.
Matt Thomas. He should have wizard, like salary cap wizard as his on his business cards.
Salary cap wizard genius.
And for giving him that title, we should get 0.5% of every contract the Seahawks sign. It just comes back to the show.
100% agreed. And I think with that,
there's only one thing left to say.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.